Good day, everyone. So, in this lesson, we will examine the origin, the history and religion of Israel and Judah. The history and religion of Israel and Judah rather, because if you look at the story, the biblical story or narratives, it has to do with the Israelites, both the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom. The Israelites as a whole are the subjects of this narrative. So we want to actually examine their history, their origin and history. What is their origin? So do we have to go alone with the biblical origin or the history of the Israelites? So in this lesson, we are going to examine the historical explanation of their history, historical explanation of the history of Israel and Judah. So the first topic I will talk about is the supposed origin of the race. The supposed origin of the race. So what is the supposed origin of the Israelite people? What is the supposed origin of the Hebrews? So that is what we want to talk about. So the supposed origin of this race can be traced back to around the middle of the Bronze Age, during the Bronze Age period. So for us to understand, because what happened during this time? So that time there was a migration that occurred in Mesopotamia. A migration that occurred in Mesopotamia. Some set of tribes from the Arabian region migrated down to Mesopotamia. So, and as a result of this migration, a lot of changes occurred in the Middle East. And when we talk about the Middle East, we are talking about the biblical site. The biblical site, that is the Middle East. That is the settings where the biblical narration actually take place. Biblical events take place. So, very long time ago, during the Middle Bronze Age, there was a migration. So, like I said, some migration from the Arabian region. So these migration are actually classified as three successive waves of migration. And this migration occurred as a result of some tribes that actually moved from Mesopotamia, moved from Arabia region down to Mesopotamia. So the first tribe that we're going to talk about that moved down there is the tribes of the Semites. We call them the Semites. So the Semites moved down to the southern Mesopotamia. They moved down to the southern Mesopotamia. On getting there, they settled down there. So by the time they got there, they actually subdued their Sumerian predecessors. So they subdued the people who were there before. So and they settled down there. And this set of people, they were the one that they spoke Akkadian. So that is the first wave of migration. Like I said before, there are three waves of migration that actually occurred in the Middle East. So after 1,000 years, when the Semites had already been staying in Mesopotamia, so another tribe broke out of this Mesopotamia 1,000 years after. So they broke out of this Mesopotamia, and they broke out of these Semites, the Semite that actually settled down there. So and they moved down. They moved into two directions. So this tribe were the tribe of Amorites. They called them the Amorites. So they broke out of the Semites in this land, and they actually got divided into two. So one of them moved to the east of Mesopotamia, and the other one moved into the west of Syria Palestine. So these ones that moved to the west of Syria Palestine, they were the one that actually they were the inhabitants of the Canaan of Palestine by the time before the Israelites actually got there. So by the time the Israelites got there, actually they were the one they actually drove out. But notwithstanding, it's talking about this group, this tribe. They actually broke out from the Semites. They broke out of the Semites and moved down into two directions. One to the east of Mesopotamia, and the other one to the west of Syria Palestine. So 1,000 years later, after 1,000 years to another wave of migration so actually occurred in that land, and which means that another tribe came out of the same Semites that were staying in Mesopotamia. So, and this tribe were called the Arameans. We call them the Arameans. So, and these Arameans basically spoke the Aramaic language. Actually, they spoke Aramaic language. So now they also broke into two directions, just like the Amorites. They also broke into two directions. So one moved to the west, and the other one to the east of the Asian East, which is in the Middle East. One moved to the west, and one moved to the east. So probably the west, the west of what's it called? Probably the west, the east of Mesopotamia, or the west of Mesopotamia. But they also broke. They actually broke into two. And by the time we move forward, we are going to get to know that the Israelites we are talking about actually came directly from these Arameans. So by the time they moved into two directions, so they actually felt their presence in the west. They felt their presence in the west. They were more impacted in the west. So and this wave of migration is closely linked to the movement of Terah, as we have it in Genesis chapter 11. So Terah, Abraham and his family. So don't forget that Bible says that Terah moved his family out of all Chaldean, and they moved down to Haran before he died. Before Terah died there. And what's it called? Abraham now began the journey as a sheikh. So he was the one that was now leading the people that were moved down to that part of the world. So from there, we can see how the journey of the Israelites actually began. So you can find that in Genesis 11 and 12. So we are trying to trace back the origin of the Israelites. And from this now we have been able to see that the Israelites actually can be traced to the Arameans. Even though in the next video session we are going to see the combination or the mixture that gave birth to the Israelites. But notwithstanding, we still trace them back to the Arameans. Don't forget, to fully understand the history of Israelites, we have to go back in history. And what happened in history? There was a migration that occurred in Mesopotamia. So now we're saying that the origin of the Israelite can be traced back to these three successive waves of migration, which is the Semites moved first. After 1,000 years, the Amorites came out of them and they moved down to Syria Palestine. And after 1,000 years, the Arameans also moved out of the Semites. So that is why we call their languages the Semitic language. The Arameans they spoke Aramaic, which was the language of Jesus Christ too. And the Semites spoke Akkadian, while the Amorites spoke, I think, Amorite. So that is that on the supposed origin of Israelites.